Hello, Will. It's Papa T. And Ben, too, if you're there. Your dad told me that you had some questions about the Hurricane Katrina that devastated New Orleans in the year 2005. And even though Nona and I had left the city one day before it hit, we know a lot about it and we've done a lot of research on it. And so I can probably answer some questions for you. But I thought before I did that, maybe I'd give you a little bit of background information so that you'd be able to form your questions better. I sent your dad a couple of maps. So if you get out one of those maps, get out the map of the state of Louisiana. And you'll see that the state of Louisiana has a long coastline on its southern border, and that coastline is with the Gulf of Mexico. Well, the Gulf of Mexico is a very warm water body of water, and that's where hurricanes come from. They actually start way down in the South Atlantic, and over time, they gather force, they get stronger and stronger, the winds are spinning, and they spin in a counterclockwise direction. So you look at your clock and you see how the hands of the clock go around this way. Well, counterclockwise means that the hurricane is a spinning wind force that goes around this way. And that's important for the damage that it did to New Orleans. The other thing you need to know about Louisiana is the concept of sea level. Sea level is how we measure elevation. And elevation is the height, the length, the height something is above sea level. And sea level is, of course, the level of the ocean. And in Louisiana, sea level is the level of the Gulf of Mexico. And all the rain and all the rivers and all the bayous in Louisiana all flow down to sea level. And eventually they empty into the Gulf of Mexico. That's sea level. So sea level is zero elevation. And all the elevations that we use around the world are from sea level. So to just give you an example, right here in Leesburg, Virginia, I'm 300 feet above sea level. So that means if I go down the Potomac River all the way to the Chesapeake Bay, and from the Chesapeake Bay into the Atlantic Ocean, I'll be at zero. I'll be at sea level. You guys in California, you're really close to the Pacific Ocean. So if you go down the Los Angeles River, or you go down to the port of Long Beach or Santa Monica, where you go to the airport and you can see the ocean, that's sea level. So I don't know what your house there in Ardmore Street is above sea level, but it's probably, I'm guessing, 30, 40, 50 feet, something like that. It's not very much. So sea level is really important. And it happens that New Orleans, if you look at it now, look at the map of New Orleans, you'll see it's a very special city. It's got that big Mississippi River curving right through it. It's a crescent. We call it a crescent city. And you can see that big curve. That's on the south. And then in the north part of the river, there's a big lake. And that lake is called Lake Pontchartrain. So New Orleans is squeezed between the big Lake Pontchartrain, which is a very shallow water lake, but it's a big lake. It's 23 miles across. Right? And the big Mississippi River that flows right through the city, which you've seen. And Zuki wants to come in here and learn about Katrina. Come on, Zuki. Come on. There he is. Here's Zuki. Look at him. See Zook? Zook. Say hello to Cousin Will. Whoop, that's his behind. All right. So let's go back to Katrina. So we got sea level, and we got the city of New Orleans squeezed between two bodies of water. Lake Pontchartrain on the north, and the Mississippi River on the south. And then not much further south of New Orleans, only about 50 miles or so, is the Gulf of Mexico. And between the Gulf of Mexico and the city of New Orleans is very, very low land. It's almost at sea level. And it's a salt marsh. It's grass and bayous, and you can see from the maps, lots of water, no mountains, no hills, nothing, just very, very flat sea level topography of land. Topography is how you measure the contour of the land. So that's the situation. So this hurricane comes into the Gulf of Mexico from the South Atlantic, named Katrina, builds power, more and more power, more and more power, and to measure hurricanes by the power of the wind as it spins. And I think Katrina got up to be, 130, 140 miles per hour, and that's a really high wind. So it was a Category 4 hurricane, between 3 and 4. The most powerful hurricanes are Category 5 hurricanes. So the hurricane was headed for New Orleans, and New Orleans has had hurricanes in the past, and so the city prepared, and everybody was assuming that it would be a manageable crisis. And as the hurricane came up, and again, if you look at the map, as it came up out of the Gulf of Mexico, it was headed, the eye of the hurricane was headed straight for the city of New Orleans. And actually, it was headed a little bit to the west of New Orleans. I'm sorry, to the east of New Orleans, okay? So if it was going, I've got to get my directions correct here, okay? So it was going to the west. It was going to the east. Yeah, okay. So if it had gone to the west of New Orleans, it would have gone up into the Louisiana mainland, the land, okay? And, I mean, it would have been an average kind of hurricane. But what happened is, right at the end, the hurricane veered to the east. And as it veered to the east, what happened was the surge, because that 140 mile an hour wind takes the water out of the Gulf of Mexico and pushes it forward like a huge wave. And that wave is going really fast, and it's big. It's a lot of water. And in this case, I think the surge of the water was 15 feet high, something like that, and it was coming really fast. And what it did is, as the hurricane passed the city on the east side, that big wind and surge took the water in the lake Pontchartrain and forced it into the northern part of the city. And this is where sea level counts. The city is like a bowl. Part of it is below sea level. On the lakeside, it's 6 or 7 feet above sea level. And on the edge of the Mississippi River, where our apartment is that you visited, that's about 8 feet above sea level. But in the middle of the city is a bowl. And what the engineers built almost 150, almost 200 years ago is they built some big canals. So when it rains in New Orleans, because it rains a lot, and the big canals, the water goes into the big canals, and it pumps into the canals, and the canals drain out into the lake. And that's how the city drains itself, even though it's below sea level. Because it's a bowl, the water would stay in the bowl. Well, what happened with Katrina is when this huge storm, with the surge of the water out of Lake Pontchartrain, went into the lake, it forced that surge into the canals, the drainage canals, and you can see them on the map. There's the 17th Street Canal, there's the London Canal, and there's the Industrial Canal. And what happened is, when that surge of water from Lake Pontchartrain came in with such great force into those canals, which were designed to drain the city out, it broke the levees. Because remember, the city is below sea level, so the canals have levees. The rainwater gets pumped into the canals and normally would go out to sea level at the lake. But this surge made the water come into the city, into the canals, and then the canal levees broke. And this happened, Nona and Papa T were here in Virginia watching it on the TV. And it was horrible, because what it did is it meant that the city would flood. The city's a bowl. Lake Pontchartrain came in the surge through the canals. Canal levees, which were badly designed by the Corps of Engineers, poorly maintained, they were weak walls on the levees, broke, flooded the city. It's a bowl. Put water in your bathtub. How do you get water out of your bathtub? You gotta pump it out. And there were no pumps to pump it out, so the city stayed flooded for 3 weeks. Can you imagine? Some places the water was 8 to 10 feet deep. Look at your house and your wall in your house and see what 8 or 10 feet of water would look like if your house was submerged under 8 or 10 feet of water. And that was over much of the city, except out by the lake, where it's above sea level, and where we live in the French Quarter, which is above sea level. So that was devastation. All the houses that were flooded were essentially destroyed. All the businesses were destroyed. Some people drowned. It was really sad and tragic. There were heroic people rescuing people in boats. And eventually, the water just subsided, went into the ground, and the city was devastated. And it took years and years and years to rebuild it. But you know what? The cool thing about people in New Orleans is they're strong, they're resilient, they're hardworking, and people went back to work and rebuilt the city, and in a lot of ways it's better than ever. So we love the city, we love to go there. Katrina was a tragedy that didn't have to happen. If the levees had been properly designed and maintained, the storm surge would have not flooded the city, and history would have been completely different. So that's Paul Petit's memory of what it was like and the disaster of Katrina in New Orleans. I'll send you some pictures and you can see some of the devastation that took such a long time to clean up. So we'll talk by FaceTime, and after you listen to this video, I can answer any questions you might have. So, and if there are any other things that you're interested in and you think Paul Petit might know something about, you just send me a question, and I'll give you what I know. Take care, buddy. See ya.